All right, welcome to Unusual Profits. I am your host, Michael Girdley. This week, I have another fun episode, and we have another fun episode. So me and Shinghi have been doing the past couple of weeks, getting together and pitching each other business ideas. For me, this is a way to A, have fun, but B, also make sure my juices are flowing creatively. And the best way I could do that is by getting really excited on a podcast and pitching it. And then it's also fun because Shinghi, who is my new buddy from Twitter, has a higher ratio of new business ideas and schemes per tweet than anybody else I know on Twitter. So I know if I can aspire to that kind of hit rate, things will be awesome. So thanks for everybody joining us. We do have a sponsor today. It's CloudBookkeeping.com. So we'll do a live read for them in a bit, but check out them, and thanks to them for sponsoring today. So Shinghi, you want to go first? You got a business idea? Pitch me on how to make some money.
Right. So this is one I've been thinking about almost like 10 years, something like that. I remember, do you remember that credit card that came out and it's like you could push the button and it would switch the numbers? Do you remember what that?
Yeah.
I forgot what that was called.
Right.
And I was like, oh,
it was the one card to rule them all.
Exactly. Right. So. I was like, kind of got that. But the problem always with that card is like, okay, there's like rotating categories for cashback, right? Like, this month is online, this month is like grocery or whatever. I want one card which can dynamically choose the best card based on where I'm shopping for the cashback. So if I'm at Costco and I have like 15 credit cards, I want to swipe one time and it's going to churn through and say, this is the best one, pay with that one. And it could be as simple as Apple Pay or like an Apple Pay app, similar, now that we have that available to us. And that's it. So it always optimizes for the highest amount of cashback, or you can say, I want the highest amount of points, whatever you want to set as the optimization thing.
Dude, first of all, I would totally buy this because it is such a pain in the butt to figure out like, oh, which card should I be using here? And it just feels like the Charlie Munger quote, where it's like, oh, I feel like I'm picking up nickels in front of a steamroller. Like there's just more important stuff for me to worry about than how am I optimizing my grocery spend. But like if you could take that off my plate, I would definitely sign up for this. Plus I'm sick of carrying like 6 cards. Like it's so annoying.
Right.
So I have a question about this. Does it work with like the new chip stuff? Like does the chip, like that chip stuff is pretty locked down in terms of the way those work. And if you have a chip enabled card, they make you use the chip. Like, does that work? Like, can you work around that technically?
So the one way I was thinking about how it would run, it would basically, you would swipe a card. So you as this company would issue a card, right? That has a card number. Mm-hmm. And then it would somehow transfer that transaction to your credit card. So that's the trickier part. Or, with Apple Pay or an app that functions in the same way as Apple Pay, it could, know your location and say you're at Costco, or guess that you're at Costco, or guess that you're at a gas station.
It does have me wondering if this is going to be maybe no, Apple won't do it because they have their own credit card. That's what they decide. That's their approach to it. So they're not going to make it so you can use other people's credit cards. But I think on the Android platform, you could imagine that happening.
Right. So
I dig the idea. I wish it would exist. The first place I would start, I think whenever you're starting a new venture, right, you're like, okay, what is the biggest risk I have here? And the biggest risk here is not actually, does anybody want this? Because I think it's clearly like an amazing idea. Is it possible to do given the current like barriers to entry from the card holders and the point of sale systems and all that kind of stuff? Like, are you going to be able to break that kind of thing that's set up now? Will they let you? I don't know.
Right. It would almost be like, are you familiar with Plastic? Have you heard of this, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
what is that?
So Plastic is a platform that a lot of like e-com people use so that they can send a wire transfer, but they can pay with a credit card. So you pay with a credit card and then you send the wire transfer, and Plastic charges you like a 1.85% fee to use their service.
Yeah.
Right. So in a way, it would be a similar platform to that, where you would pay with a credit card, and then Plastic would take that and basically debit one of your other credit cards, right? So you have all of them in this single system. You pay with one.
Yeah.
They're then passing on that transaction cost to a different credit card. Anyway, that's just what I thought. It'd be something like Plastic, but you'd need to pass on the merchant code and all the stuff that gets you the cash back too, which is a little bit more complicated.
All right. I like that one. That's a good one. Okay. Let me see. You said you had something to say about daycare centers. So like this is something I saw on Twitter, And it's a continuing meme amongst folks where, they see these folks that have done really well in like hard businesses, right? Like janitorial or what's another one that's loved, HVAC, right? Like people love that kind of stuff. And it came up again where, a friend of mine on Twitter, Moses, who's a great guy, Moses Kagan, a good follower if you don't follow him. And he tweeted, at the risk of starting this whole thing again, I ran into an old friend who is rolling out a chain of high-end daycares and totally killing it. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, just do regular things better and more reliability at higher price points. And like, I dig what they're saying and I know that, but like in the end, like daycare is a good business if you get in the right niche, but it's also really hard. Like you're dealing with people, like weird insurance stuff, like there's a lot of stuff. And then like the other one is like the janitorial stuff. Like you're cleaning toilets. If one of your employees doesn't show up, you are cleaning poop.
Right.
So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, daycare is kind of the one du jour, but man, like that's just hard. hard. So I don't know. You said you had something to say about daycares.
Well,
I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Like you need to find the right people to run your daycares, right? Like I feel like that in itself is a job. Like that's a really significant job. But I always think like the real estate is out there, and I think it's in churches. Like most churches are closed 6 days out of the week. They just exist. I mean, especially, at least where we are here. And it's just like valuable real estate that's usually in a great location that has tons of parking and it's just sitting there. And I do feel like there's a pretty untapped opportunity to go to churches and pitch them on, hey, we can help or we'll pay your mortgage basically and let us run a daycare inside your church. And just keep
it's
doing
interesting that. When I was a kid, and I'm not much of a churchgoer now, but when I was a kid, we would go to daycare at the churches. Like they were in that business.
Right.
And they all got out of it. Like they just said, this is too much work. It's better just to show up, on Super Bowl Sunday, church and say, hey, we need some donations. Like that's a much higher ROI, approach to sustain a church than like, dealing with snotty kids and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, but no, I dig it. I think a lot of people also talk about getting into daycare or other retail style businesses as a covered land play. Like how do you use your business to acquire real estate over time that becomes valuable? It's the classical McDonald's example, right? Like we're a real estate business that flips hamburgers. Are you a daycare that just happens to be a real estate company? And I got pitched, a non-friend on the Twitters came by the other day and he was like, look, I want to get in the doggy daycare business, which to me seems better than the kid daycare business because nobody sends you to jail if the dog dies under your care. But he was talking about doggy daycares as a way to just secretly be in the real estate business. And I was like, I kind of like it. There's something to that.
There's far too much money being spent on dogs in the United States, but to each their own.
I know. I wish we treated our people as good as we do our dogs.
Yeah, like all my friends who are in the dog e-com business, they're just making too much money. Like, I'm going to sell supplements for dogs. It's like, how the hell they work? It's just
nobody knows.
Yeah, it's an amazing business to be
Nobody knows. Nobody knows. All right. Cool. All right. What you got? Give me something.
Well, on the covered real estate thing, I do think. So I just sold my house in Seattle and I kind of realized, man, you can make a lot of money if you move every 2 years. So you buy a house, you live in it for 2 years, and then you move out and you buy a new house and you rent the old house for 3 years and then you sell it, right? Okay. So that you hit the 2 out of 5 year no tax on gains, right? Threshold. Okay. And you just keep doing that. Like that's an easy way to make money as long as you're in an appreciating market, of course. If you're in a depreciating market, you might get pretty screwed. But then you have the renter.
And some appreciating market. Well, and also important to remember, some appreciating markets are actually bad rental markets, right? So like San Antonio, where I live, is like a really good appreciating housing price market because people are able to afford houses. But like as a single family rental house place, it's actually bad. Like you talk to and in the multifamily too, you look at all like the California guys who bought like real estate here in San Antonio, like they're like, yeah, not doing that again. It's because we have no limitations on supply. Like they have to play they have to play the game in hard mode.
Right.
So anyway, but yeah, so that also works. But I mean, I think you're exactly right. I knew people who their whole business was like they were handy people, contractors. They loved to work on their houses. They would move into a house as a couple. They would make that house better. They would live in it for the 2-year threshold. And then after that, like they knew they could sell it as a primary residence, tax free. Up to a certain limit, and they do that, and that was their whole thing, and they would earn enough to live for the next 2 years and afford the next project.
Right.
And so I think that's super genius. The government is incentivizing you to go do that business.
Right. Just that thought. All right. So here's an idea I had this past week. I think you like this one, Michael.
Yep.
All right. We spend an incalculable amount of time saving files. If you combine all of the world together, how much time have you spent saving a file and finding the right folder for that file? Incredible. Like we can change the world with this amount of time. So the idea is that it's just some AI software that runs kind of constantly on your computer. And whenever you're doing something, like you're writing a Word document, it's scanning that Word document and it's coming up with the best title for that Word document. And it's also trying to predict where you're most likely to save that Word document. So it'll know kind of everything and build like a neural net in the background and then be like, okay, he probably wants it in this folder with this name. And it's a simple freaking app. Like that's not that complicated, I think, to do.
Yeah.
But it could, change a lot of things. And the other thing it could do is that when you're downloading files, it does the same thing. So it renames files based on the website you downloaded it from, based on the time, whatever it may be. Saves your life, saves time.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I totally dig this. I actually think you can build this, at least what I know about Mac OS, like they'll let you plug in stuff like this in terms of different things. I actually think the place where file saving needs to go looks a lot more like what your interface is for Google Mail, right? For Gmail. And so Gmail, as I watched it over time, I was like, oh, we're just saving stuff wherever. And then we use search to find it. Like that's pretty genius. So that there is no organization. It's just like YOLO, put it in here. And then you have a good query to get you there. It does make me wonder if over time we're going to go more to that in terms of how we think about files. I don't know, but there's a computer scientist talking. Like, I'm like, oh, a heap. This is great. Let's do this. Right. Like, it'll be great. But, I think the cool thing about ideas like this, like they definitely need to exist, right? And I see them all the time. Like another example is like, it's stupid that your clipboard can only hold one thing, right? When you're copy pasting inside of an OS, and so people like there's dozens of apps that people have solved that problem, but like nobody I know uses them. And it's because like people get so ingrained in their workflow that they never like say, oh, you know what? I could have saved 3 seconds right there. Maybe I'll go learn this new app and invest 15 minutes in it. And so that's why, I dig this. Like it totally needs to exist. That's why I wrote one of your best to the tweet because this needs to exist. As I thought about it some more, I'm like, I don't know if it's easy to make a business around this just because like of that pain in the ass threshold that you have to get people over where they're just, it's so hard to talk somebody into investing 10 minutes right now or money right now to save themselves 3 seconds 100 times a year or 200 times a year. They just don't do it because, that's how we're wired.
Oh, 100%.
So I dig it. We need this. Apple should just build this because we're already paid enough for the damn computers. That's my 2 cents.
I agree. And a lot of these ideas, like just someone build them, like make our lives better is basically what my premise is of a lot of the ideas I come up with. Just make my life easier. Like somebody go do that. Windows, you can do that. Mac, whoever.
Okay, so here's the next one. This is one I actually want to buy. Okay. So I posted this tweet out. So I'm involved in small scale local retail, and I wrote, how do subscale consumer businesses do customer sentiment tracking? So this is like, I own a pet shop, or I own a coffee shop, or I own a small bank. Like how do I know when a bunch of randoms are coming into my business, like were they happy or not, right? And all the options when you're subscale kind of suck, right? You can do an NPS, right? Net Promoter Score. You email them a bunch of people and then hope that they dig them out of their email. Spoiler alert, when you have a huge email list, like consumers don't answer their email, like it goes into the spam filter. It just doesn't work at that scale. You can do the other thing, which is, well, hopefully our Google reviews are good, and then you can play with Podium and all these kind of different software things to increase your Google reviews. And so here was the idea, which I want to buy as a small business. Like, we are at a point right now where the computing and the cameras and the cloud infrastructure is cheap enough that as a small business, I want to pay for a system that has cameras that watch my business. And you can buy these today from like alarm.com and different providers like that. And then what I want those things to do, and you could do this also with off-the-shelf packages, I want them to watch the people that go to my store, and I want to build metrics around them. And one of the metrics I want to build around them is look at their faces and give me sentiment analysis, which also off-the-shelf packages can do that for you now. Like, look at a face and tell you what the emotion that person feeling is. Like, I want to quantify all that. So that's the thing. That's the business. Like, for small businesses, go build this system, which is just assembling a bunch of off-the-shelf stuff now, and charge me $100 a month or $200 a month to give me quantified happiness scores about my customers as they go through my facility. That's the whole business. There you go. What do you think?
I think the only worry I would have with that is the creep factor. Like,
yeah,
it would be like knowing that, you're getting, your face scanned as you go into business and all that.
Yeah. What if I told you the big banks are already doing it? If you go into a Chase branch, they have that system.
Well, then, if I didn't know,
you're like, oh man, I felt better before this podcast started.
Luckily, I bank Bank of America.
Oh yeah, that's another problem. They just don't know where your money is.
What do you think about, like, have you ever been to a bathroom and they have that little happiness meter, those little smiley faces?
Yeah.
They usually have them in like airports, and you press how you feel about the cleanliness about the bathroom. Would you get the same result in a far simpler manner, or you think that the sentiment would be better?
So you have those in the point of sale systems, and like our business is a drive-through. Mm-hmm. So you, in the drive-through thing, you have a problem with those because somebody is handing you the device and it says, "How was your service today?" And the person's like looking at you.
Right.
And you're like, well, I guess it's fine. So, and then we've noticed like the people that actually click on that, like I get an email every time they get a negative one, and like they'll follow up with the customer, and the customer's like, "Oh, I clicked that by accident. Like, I really meant a positive one," like, because I have it over and over again. So, and then you have the second problem, which is like you'll see those when you go to like China. Like, China has like the little thing where it's like, "How was your customs experience?" And you're like, meanwhile, there's a guy with a gun standing next to you. You're like, "Well, it's great. A+. Thank you, Prime Minister Xi." Like, right. It was fantastic. So, those become very limited as well because you have people don't necessarily press them, and then you have a skewing of the sample because of the environment that you're in. Like, I'm interested in something that doesn't require that level of impetus by somebody to do it.
What do you think of? Okay, this is like maybe too simplistic too. But like if you have a drive-through business, right? And then you have like the person you're talking to, and then as you're driving away, there's a sign that says, "Flash your lights if you had a good experience." Something like that. That's like the ultimate simplistic form of what you're looking for, but very easy probably to capture and to do.
Well, so where I think I suggested, and I don't run this business, so I'm not going to make the decision, but where I ended up was like, hey, let's put a sign right by the door that says, "How did we do? Text us. And here's the number."
Yeah.
And then like we watch that, and there is a clear feedback loop where somebody can say, "This sucked. This was great. Text headquarters," and we hear about it. Like that's probably where we'll end up. And it's about, let's invite them to talk to us. So yeah, kind of the same idea you're saying, but instead of that, just like, okay, like, here's our phone number. Don't call us, but text this number and we'll be in good shape.
Right. Nice. Yeah.
So
I like it. Yeah,
thanks for hearing that one. I think that's a real business. I want to buy this. If somebody makes this, I want to buy this.
I like it. Yeah. It must be so much harder with physical businesses too versus like e-com. Well, I mean, e-com's hard too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think e-com, at least it depends on how if you have direct to your customers, you have a lot more power. If you're doing Amazon stuff, you have slightly less power because they want to control the customer relationship.
Right.
So Cool. All right, what you got?
All right, so I ran into this problem again last week, and I just think there's something here. All right, so I know you can spin up like a virtual desktop, right, with like AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, right? But I had a huge Excel file that I wanted to process, and it took me. I literally just stayed on my computer the entire day. It took me 8 hours, pasting about 10,000 rows at a time to get this done. And the alternative was like everyone's like learn SQL, right? It's like, well, I don't want to learn SQL today. I made it somehow working at Amazon 6 years. And I never learned SQL, which is an amazing trait that I'm very proud of. Instead, I influenced friends instead of learning SQL to do SQL for me. So what I'm proposing here is that it's like I can sign up for a supercomputer that has Windows on it, that has Excel, and maybe it has like Photoshop and some other, you need a lot of processing if you're going to compile tons of pictures or tons of video or whatever, right? And you just hop on there really quick. You upload your data to there, and then you let it process it for you.
Yeah.
So, and then you're done. It's like I only probably needed it for like 30 minutes with like a really powerful computer versus the 8 hours I spent of my time processing this manually.
So is your problem that your Excel file is too large? Because there's a limit on how big the Excel files can, just by the way they built the software. It's not necessarily a problem with your computer. So is that the problem?
No, so Excel has like what 2 million rows limit or something like that, right? So I was under that. I'm like it was like 4 or 250 or something, but I had 8 million cells with formulas in it that I wanted to calculate. Yeah. What I was basically doing is I was calculating the lifetime value of all my customers to calculate 3 month, 6 month, 12 month, 24 month, etc. And there's 8 million cells with formulas, and it just was taking forever to process.
Yeah.
So yeah, easy. It's just like, okay, fine. I'll pay, however much it is to run this, upload, run it, and I'm done. I walk away. I'm happy.
Yeah. So, I mean, the idea of having a virtual desktop that you get into with a Windows interface and it's got, a whatever the latest 64 core AMD CPU and you run that all on there, like I gotta imagine somebody's done that. So you've Googled like there is nobody that does this, like, fractional access to like a computer with 256 gigs and this 64 core like top of line CPU, like it does.
Yeah. There's someone mentioned like in the comments that there's a browser that's trying to do this. I would have to find it, but anyway. Yeah. I mean, it's not, like I somewhere in here I put like it should be as easy like a caveman could do it. Like there's no like create an AWS account. Tell me about how many cores you want. No, it's like I want a lot. You figure out how many cores I need to process this.
This person talked about Mighty as the name of the browser,
right?
Which is basically like they'll run your browser in the cloud, which given how much energy Chrome takes, how much memory it takes, may not be a bad idea.
Right.
It is interesting. Google had the version of this, but for video games, and it like went nowhere. Where you're gonna like cloud stream your video games, and it's a failure. But yeah, I mean, this
Amazon
is not technically.
The same thing.
Yeah,
they just did. So they're all
their video game.
Yeah.
Oh, good. If only I played video games instead of talking on Twitter. So this is not hard to do. Technically, like you could do this pretty straightforward. It's off the shelf, like virtual desktop. The billing systems are all there, and then you just do sharing. It just shocks me that this isn't around. It just blows my mind. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, and I think the other recommendations here by people where like eventually, like you graduate past Excel, and I've done that before, where I'm like doing analysis inside of R, but you don't want to do that. You want to run your Excel stuff and makes sense. So kind of runs against the big data problem here, right? So, yeah, I don't know.
Well, I mean,
I like it though.
Data sets need everything in columns, right? As far as I can understand. And to like, like to me, I've already like moved everything from columns into like I have some rows and I have columns and I'm calculating. I was like, I don't want to reconvert all this.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think a Microsoft person would tell you like learn how to use Access. Like you've become an Access user, but I understand you want to make it look like You want to make it look like Excel. So I totally dig it. Cool.
Anyway,
well, I like that one. Oh, so I got one more, and then I think we're probably running up on time. Where did it go? Okay, here's the idea. I'll pull this one up. Oh, okay. I tweeted this. I'm seeing, I'm 47 now, and I'm starting to see moms especially, and I think there's dads in this, but I have no dads in my sample size. But these people are like folks who like checked out of the workforce, when in their 20s, right, or early 30s to have a kid, and now they've gotten into a place in life where like their kids are getting older and they're ready to find their next thing, but like there's not really opportunities for them, right? And so part of the problem is when they go out and like, let's say these moms who have 15 and 20-year-olds, right? And they don't, there's not a good place for them to go and find jobs that cater to somebody with that kind of schedule. Like you need a flexible schedule. You need, a boss that understands that, you're balancing your work time with being a parent. Like sick kids, sometimes you're going to be working from home. So like the idea I tweeted was like, man, somebody needs to make a job board just for moms that have like this 15-year gap in their resume from when they checked out and started raising kids, or dads the same way. And it's like, okay, well, we're gonna understand that you're gonna have that gap, right? We're gonna give you the skills training, we're gonna give you the flexibility you need. And it's a job board specifically for folks that want to come back, right? Come back from all of that and do that. So anyway, that's the idea. Like it's a job board just for moms that want to come back to the workforce. So business model is kind of what you'd imagine. Employers pay money to post jobs. Candidates are free. Same kind of stuff. So what do you think?
I think this is a great idea. Like I'm going to post in the chat here. Looks like there's a couple people in the space, but no one looks like they're doing a good job. And the way I think what you said there is key, where I'm a mom, and it can, when you're kind of like, applying yourself for this job board, you can say, I have a 15 and a 16-year-old kid, which means I'm unavailable at this time and this time because I have to go take my kids to school. I got to go pick them up. Right. And I may be unavailable certain times on sick days, something like that, where it can be really clear what's a person's availability and their times. And then you can find people that match what you need. So like say I need help just in the mornings on, Monday through Friday or whatever. It can help you pair. So it's not like, you get to the person only to realize that they're not a good fit for time. You kind of do a lot of that pre-work. So I think this is a great idea and a very underutilized
and this
workforce.
This is the one that people referred to in the replies. The Mom Project, which just raised a Series C, which is interesting, but there's two things about it that I was like, I don't know. Number one is like, yes, this needs to exist. Number two is like nobody in my circle, and I live over in, BFE America, like nobody talks about this. This hasn't gotten there. And then the second thing is like, I look at the people that they're like the employers, like they're targeting, like these aren't like middle America SMBs. Like somebody needs to make this, but for like your normal companies, right? And no offense, but like Facebook, like I know they're going to put their logo on here as one of the employers, but like those type of companies like constitute 0.1% or 1% like of employers. Like you look at it, it's SMBs that really matter. Like how do you build something like this that really targets kind of small businesses who can build those kind of flexible things rather than, Dropbox, who, not to insult them, but is probably looking for the HBS grad who, Harvard Business School grad who dropped out. That's who they want, right? And that's not your average. That's not your average mom.
And I'm also thinking,
how do you build
this? Just want to run these people to the ground.
Maybe it's like, well, and that is part of the problem with society as well, right? Like a lot of companies see, females or people of color and like, think I can get away with paying you less, which is not the way it should be.
Right.
And so, it's interesting to see like, I dig the idea of this. It hasn't, for me, I always look at when I see startups and I'm like, people are like, that market's finished. Like that's already solved. That's over. Don't worry about it. You don't even need to try that. And then I look around me and I'm like, wait, this has if this is over, if this market's over, like, where is it? Like, I don't see it. If it's over, like,
Right.
like I should know somebody, or, you know, the way I hear about it is not just because some random reply on Twitter has heard of this because it was in the news. Like, when something's really over, like, you start to see it everywhere. Like, I see Salesforce over, or I start to see Oracle everywhere, or I start to see Facebook everywhere. Those are over markets. This, you know, I think really has an opportunity. There's still lots of space here to go make something happen.
Absolutely. And I think you got a good background for that with hire and near. I say this wouldn't be that hard to like build onto. This is something with that.
Yeah. Maybe if I found someone who was a mom who wanted to get back into the workforce to build it. No, just, I don't know. I'm in the business of incubating companies, not.
Yeah. You hire the founder as a mom.
Yeah, I mean, my model a lot now is partnering with the founder and unlocking opportunities and providing value to them. But in the end, like, I've done it enough, like, being in the trenches and building the business. Like, the thing I want to do is support people building the businesses and partner with them. So yeah, that's what I mean. I wouldn't necessarily hire them. I would partner with them. Like, so anyway, if you're a badass like mom and you have a vision to build a job board for SMBs, like, or for small businesses to connect and bring moms and dads out of who've left the career, like, holler at me. Like, let's talk.
I love it.
So cool. All right. You got anything else? Otherwise, like, I think we can click done on this one. We've
well, we got to do one fun one, I think. So I got, okay. Do you remember, what's that movie, The Jamaican Bobsled Team? Do you remember that movie? Cool Runnings. Right. Okay. So
why do I know that? This is why I can't remember my kids' birthdays, because I know Cool Runnings.
Right.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Oh, that was a great movie. Let's do a modern retake of that one. Okay. So this is a great movie idea. I think, you know, all the producers out there should take this. All right. You have an African landlocked nation near the equator with just set Bitcoin as their nation's currency. Right. So, okay, we are full on Bitcoin, but the problem is they can't mine Bitcoin because it's too hot. They're right near the equator. It's not a great place to mine Bitcoin. So they come up with this genius idea to send a crew of people to Antarctica to develop a crypto mining company down there to fund their nation's currency. And it's just, it's a wonderful story altogether there.
So it's basically the tagline is it's Cool Runnings, but in Antarctica and with scammy cryptocurrency. Is that the
exactly? Like, they're on the mission to save their country because they're on the Bitcoin currency. So something like that. I think it could be very funny and abusing.
The fun thing about any of that stuff is, you know, crypto has created a bunch of people who are not very savvy around stuff like the economics of movie producing or different types of business like that. So, like, that is one of the things I've seen over and over again. Like, we saw a Constitution DAO, like the people that got together to create the DAO, the digital distributed autonomous organization, to buy the Constitution, or the guys who just bought the Dune book. I think that's a great example. So if you didn't see this on the internet, this crypto organization that's called a DAO got together and raised a few $1 million to go buy a copy of this book, which was basically a version of the movie of a planned movie for the science fiction novel Dune, which was great. The movie never got made. The book's cool. It's like a lot of groundbreaking design. But they went and bought the book thinking it gave them rights to reproduce the book, when in fact they don't get it. So they basically paid $2.6 million as a group for a book that they can't do anything with. Like, it's a great story of kind of how crypto has created so many people that are just dumb money and in collectively dumb money. So anyway, that brings me all the way back to this individual idea of the cryptocurrency in Antarctica idea, which is, there's enough dumb money out there. I think you could get this funded.
I love
it. Like, maybe do a DAO for this, and it's like, let's go.
I love it. We'll bring back the cast from Cool Runnings, something like that.
That was such a sweet. That was a Disney movie, right? That was like so sweet.
It was such a good movie. Yeah.
Cool, man. Cool. All right. Thanks again. So I'll pull it up here. Our sponsor, we got so excited we didn't do the live read in the middle. Our sponsor today is CloudBookkeeping.com. So Shinghi, this is actually my neighbor. He and I met each other through through him listening to the podcast. So I'm excited to have him. And so they do bookkeeping based around QuickBooks. So if you're a small business and you want to outsource your bookkeeping and focus on your business, you can call Charlie and his team, and that's what they do. So lots of experience, all American-based accountants and bookkeepers, and they'll work with you to keep your books and get it off your plate so you can focus on what matters most, which is delighting your customers. So thanks to cloudbookkeeping.com for sponsoring. And he's actually gotten some business off of our podcast. So it turns out billboards work, and advertising on Unusual Profits and Acquisitions Anonymous, those work as well.
It's a great SMB user base here. So yeah, it's awesome.
There you go. All right, everybody. Thanks for being here. Shinghi, great job, buddy.
Thanks, Michael.